Hello everybody and welcome! I'm joined by my good buddy Cthulhu here to give my first thoughts on the Drowned City campaign expansion. These are always fun videos for me to do where I get to share my thoughts, my initial first thoughts of the campaigns as they come out. I've been doing this since Edge of the Earth and I'm very excited to continue this today into the Drowned City. I am going to be doing a spoiler-free section where I'm going to be covering my general thoughts, and then I'm going to put a time code, which you can find down in the video description, and I'm also going to give a warning when we enter into spoiler territory where I'm going to talk in greater detail about the cards we've seen, the scenarios we've played. We have currently recorded 5 scenarios of this campaign, and so we're roughly halfway. We might be a little bit more than halfway at the time of recording this video, but these are still my initial thoughts. And honestly, Drowned City I think is going to offer a lot of replayability, and in my opinion, in my humble opinion, I think it even offers more replayability in terms of Scarlet Keys for me personally, compared to its structure. So, first off, I think what everyone wants to know is, am I enjoying the Drowned City? And the answer to that is yes. I am not as hooked into it as I was in the Feast of Hemlock Vale. And the main reason for that is, looking back, the campaign theme and feeling of the Feast of Hemlock Vale really worked for me. I really enjoyed the scenarios of Feast of Hemlock Vale, and I was kind of just addicted. So much so that even after two replays, I've played it 3 times, Feast of Hemlock Vale is still my number 2 favorite campaign. So while I may not seem as hyped as I was for the Feast of Hemlock Vale that I am for Drowned City, that does not mean I think that Drowned City is a bad campaign. I actually think, in my humble opinion, that the Drowned City is a very, very good campaign. And in time, after replays, I can see this sitting in the top 5 or even potentially the top 3. I think that the design team has done it again. The people at FFG, I think they designed a really good campaign, and seeing them explore a linear structure has been incredibly refreshing. So, what do I think is so good about Drowned City that I can talk about as spoiler-free as possible? What I'm thinking that I've really enjoyed and I'm very grateful for, and I didn't know how much I missed it, was how hands-off the campaign structure, the setup, and the reading is in this campaign. I am a big fan of the preludes in Feast of Hemlock Vale. I enjoy the reading in that structure. I was not a big fan of the reading of Scarlet Keys. However, even though I was a big fan of the reading in Hemlock Vale, there is still quite a bit of reading in that campaign, right? And Drowned City just says, hey, brother, don't worry about it. We got a map for you to play, and we want you to play it. That is another thing that also carries over to why I think Drowned City is so good and why I think it is going to be replayable. Because the map structures are so simple, at least in the scenarios that we have played, and the core concept of that scenario is so simple or so thematically, I don't want to use the word pure, but they're so thematically just there that the scenarios themselves are incredibly open, right? Not in the sense that, like, you can do anything to get through them. I'm going to talk about balance in a little bit. But it's the fact that the scenarios are just Arkham, right? The scenarios we've played, they have the key things about Arkham Horror that I love, right? You have to fight enemies or evade enemies. You have to be constantly moving around the map. You need to be investigating and getting clues, and those 3 things are like the core identity of what Arkham Horror the card game is. And then the idea is that you expand on those things, provide challenges for those things, and you just let the players have a fun time playing. And that's really cool, right? Like, that's really fun. Like, I think Hemlock And I'm like, Scarlet Keys still did this, right? Like Scarlet, I'm not going to say that Scarlet Keys or Edge of the Earth didn't do this, or that Hemlock didn't do this, right? Everything has done this, but Drowned City feels like that return to Circle Undone, Dunwich, Path to Carcosa style setup and structure that I really missed. An example of this, I'm going to say this is, once again, there's no spoilers here, but I'm going to give you kind of like a general example of how this comes across. We played a scenario last night when we were recording, and Travis, we were all set up and we were all playing, and then Travis is like, look at this big pile of set-aside cards that we can potentially interact with. And that is very exciting, right? Where the structure is less about elaborate setups, but is also about, like, the structure is instead about discovering and understanding and learning throughout the scenario, and kind of like getting like the mechanics given to you piecemeal over time, which I thought is very rewarding. I think the big thing here is that I'm going to do some words. I'm going to like paraphrase some words that Travis said at the end of recording last night. Everything's so simple, so we just get to make dumb jokes while playing, right? And it is. The structure is very good for this campaign in terms of like at least the scenarios we've played so far. And they're also thematically, I think, incredibly dense, which is very exciting. And I think mechanically, because they're so simple, there actually is a surprisingly amount of discoveries and exploration within the scenarios to make in terms of new challenges that might appear depending on how things are structured, right? And I might be just talking random gibberish here, but I truly do believe that these scenarios, because of their structure as just being the three core tenets of Arkham, at least what I believe they are, is incredible. It's incredible in terms of just like how excited it is to make me want to play Arkham, right? So while like I said earlier that I wasn't going to maybe sound as hyped as I was for the Feast of Hemlock Vale, but I then just dropped that. I think that it's incredible. I do think it's very good, right? Like the theme doesn't resonate as much with me. I do think that it does a really good job of the idea of exploring Rilia, right? I think that they've done a good job of setting up really cool hooks for all the areas that you explore, right? I think they've done a really good job on that. I think the task system, which they outlined in the release article, is very fun and I think very engaging. We randomly rolled our tasks. You are able to choose, but we chose basically just on the name, right, of how we felt they fit for our characters. And it has been a very fun mini game to complete our tasks in the scenarios that we are playing. The structure of the campaign of if you go from the east or the west, which was also advertised in the announcement article, is very good. It's very compelling, and I'm curious to see how the scenarios change, because if there's one thing that I think, okay, this is a lie, because there's a lot of things that I think this design team does really well, but if there's one thing that I think that at least in comparison to Scarlet Keys, that I think the design team did very well with the Feast of Hemlock Vale in this one, and you can actually see them like growing on this idea, is the concept of scaling scenarios depending on when they happen. I think that the Feast of Hemlock Vale is very good in this. And while I can't say the same is true about Drowned City, Travis showed me a quick glimpse of the campaign guide, and it does seem to be like different setups and structures depending on if you came in from the east or the west, which is again very compelling, and why I think this campaign is going to be very fun, because the idea is that when you come in, you just do the opposite of what you did last time, and you have a linear, which is important because you do not need to make decisions between scenarios. You have a very linear structure that is going to be different to the your last journey through. So it's kind of like in Dunwich Legacy, where if you choose extracurricular activity or the house always wins first, whichever one they're like going to just like change slightly, but it's going to be like that for a full 8 to 9 part campaign, which is really cool. I give it a big thumbs up. I really recommend Drowned City. I'm really enjoying it. The simplicity is very nice after some higher complexity campaigns for the last two. And I think that the campaign structure is very compelling, and I think that the scenarios have all been bangers. I've enjoyed all of them. They've all made me go, that's great. While there hasn't been a moment for me like with the Lost Sister in the Feast of Hemlock Vale, never say never, right? Because I never thought something like would get me like Ishimaru Haruko in The Last King, right? But then I got in the Lost Sister. Well, apparently I just need to read more scenarios that's like the blank blank, and those would work really well for me, especially if they are lost or last. But I haven't gotten a moment like that where I went like, wow, like this is like what I love about Arkham. Like it's like my favorite things, like just the complete utter awe of the story that I'm seeing told. But that doesn't mean I'm not enjoying it. I think it's a very, very good campaign, and I'm excited to finish it. I'm very excited to finish it. And I'm also very excited for the replay. I think Travis, Byrne, and I are all very interested in joining us, or in like immediately jumping in and going in from the other side, because we went in from the west on our blind play, so we went in from our east. So we can have like an east side blind play. A few things as well that I can say for spoiler free before we get into the actual spoilers. I think the treachery design is very nice. I think they've done a very good job of targeting a little bit of everything. I was trying to think while we were playing yesterday, if I had to make like a general tip video for what I would see for this, it's actually kind of hard because I think they stress a lot of things really well. And I also think that the enemy design is some of the best we've seen in a long time. There are so many compelling enemies in this expansion. I thought that like the concept of the Hemlock Vale's enemies was very nice, but these Drowned City enemies are some of the most intriguing enemy design we've seen in a very long time. So overall, Drowned City is very good. I can't wait to finish it, and I can't wait to share my final thoughts. But with that, I'm going to say that spoiler-free time has ended, and we're going to go into spoiler mode. I don't know how much I'm going to dive into this, but you know, you give a man you give the man the tiniest bit to talk about, and he's going to just talk about it forever. So, we started with the first scenario called One Last Job. The concept for this scenario is the opening scenario for everybody is pretty nice. It's just there's a gang war between the Sheldons and the, I want to say O'Malley's, but I don't think that's it. Sheldons and the, we can figure this out because I have the O'Banions. Yeah, Sadie Sheldon and Naomi O'Banion. Yes, the O'Banions. What did I say? I don't even remember what I said, and it was only a few seconds ago. But this was a nice, very simple way to start with some simple enemies. Started with a normal, traditional Arkham map, right? Had some really fun encounter card designs. I don't have much to say. I think it's like, it wasn't my personal favorite opening to a campaign, but I can't knock it. There's nothing I disliked about it. I thought the reveal into the final bit where if you talked to the person who's there, and then like everyone converges in on like Hibbs Roadhouse or wherever you are, and there's like suddenly you're like surrounded by gangsters, but then you're like, well, you know, it's actually kind of be okay because it's designed very well that the route I took, I was rewarded for doing this, and I don't need to feel as much stress. So yeah, I think it's an all right opening scenario. I had nothing really to say, but I think it's well designed, which is really cool. And it also has that same sort of structure I've been talking about that I'm going to be talking about a lot, where you're kind of like, rather than setting up an elaborate big thing at the start, you like piecemeal add layers of complexity onto things, which I think is a lot more compelling for me as a player. And it's a big reason why I've enjoyed this. After that, we hopped into, as I said, we came in from the west. So if you're going in through the east and you've not finished the campaign, unfortunately, this is going to be some spoiler stuff for you. The first scenario on the western path is the Western Wall. This is a thematically gorgeous idea for a scenario, and it gets my, like, fear of deep water going. So the concept for this one is that, the concept for the whole thing is there's two ways to go into Aurelia, right? We can either go up and out, or we can go in and up, right? So we chose to go down because I told Travis, he let me choose because Travis is a straight up G. He told me, Justin, you can choose like if you want to go up over or if you want to go down. And my real reason was because I didn't like the one NPC. She was a little bit too mean to me, so I chose the other NPC just by default. But the concept of this scenario is that in order to get down into Aurelia, you need to scale down like a large wall that goes deep underwater. So flood tokens are back. And while I don't think that there has been any new exploration into the flood tokens design space, the reality is it might be, pardon my water-based pun here, but it might be a little bit shallow. Flood might be a little bit shallow in its design, and it might just be at its best as a metric to showcase flood, right? To showcase water. So as you get down deeper, it became automatically more and more flooded as you got deeper underwater, and eventually you were completely submerged. But as you're going down the wall, you can find different paths and different openings that lead to different places that help you translate the glyphs, which is Travis is loving it. Travis likes when he can like make those fun little like discoveries and like little progression points in the campaign. So that's working really well for that. I think they're cool. I think they're fun to translate. I think that like the glyphs are a really nice way to explore the idea of having little side quests to earn experience that are not necessarily too complicated or too abundant. And also what I imagine, I'm going to wager, are also a scaling metric as the game goes, where the more glyphs you have, the harder it's going to be later on. That's my theory, but I don't know if that is true. So take that, with a grain of salt. But yeah, as you're going deeper down this wall, you get to see a bunch of like deep ones show up. The flood tokens are there. You get to see a bunch of like cool locales. There's like some like drowned ships, some sunken stairways, some like, obsidian foundations, which sounds really cool. But like there's a lot of really cool exploration in like the underwater stuff, which is, I'm a big sucker for that kind of stuff, like deep sea things. There's some cool like enemies called the stowaways, which as far as I can tell, I don't know much if they're like actually based on like a Lovecraft Cthulhu mythos creature, or if they're just like this idea of these alien parasites that infect things. I'm too ignorant to know the actual answer to that question. They are very fun and flavorful, and I think that they're really like neat. In this scenario, we also got our introduction to the unkillable enemy known as the Inescapable. And boy howdy, was this guy really neat. We saw the campaign mechanic, well, it might not be a campaign mechanic, it might show up again, of a new keyword called Relentless, which means that when they attack during the enemy phase, after attacking, they ready and attack again. The Inescapable, sorry, did I call him the Unnameable earlier? I don't even know. But the Inescapable the Inescapable has 2 damage, which means that if this MFer gets to attack you, he will deal you 4 damage, which is a lot of damage. And this has actually been a really fun discovery thing, because Travis was using the Seeker asset, I forget the name, Misdirection, I think. Excuse me. The one that lets you dodge. It's like the opposite. It's the Seeker version of Bulwark. And it's been a cool way to just make the Inescapable's like relentless keyword a lot softer. But what was really exciting about for me was just seeing how there is actually a lot of counterplay that can be discovered with Relentless that has given things a little bit more like meat on the bone, right? So it's a very fun mechanic to play around, and I personally have been enjoying it more than Elusive so far. I think that this mechanic is I think it's a very nice keyword to explore. But yeah, I could talk a little bit more about the tasks. My current task is every time I fail a test by 2 or more, I have to remove a point from it. And if I do that 4 times, I don't complete my task. And while it is actually, and this is actually a positive, it's actually like changed my gameplay pattern where I am no longer trying to make tests I don't need to. And it actually feels very flavorful and fun to be interacting with. So I think the tasks are very interesting, and I think Bryn and Travis also have very cool tasks. Travis has a very easy one. He's the Seeker. He has the remove clues from locations, and Bryn has take horror, which I think is it's been very fun to watch. After the Western Trail, we did the optional Drowned Quarter, which is basically the water temple from Ocarina of Time. It's all about shifting like water levels and like activating a big machine in the center. And this is when we started to see some very some big instances of the enemy design that I think was really cool. Most notably, there's an enemy called the... Let me see if I can just quickly find it. Let me just see if I can find this guy's name. They are my nemesis. I hate these guys, but in the best way. The Persistent Constructs. These are the guys that when you defeat them, you spawn each other Persistent Construct from the victory display. And these guys are a nightmare. They are a nightmare to deal with. And I love their design. I think these are some of the most compelling enemies we've seen in a very long time. They remind me a lot of those Vengeance Zero snakes from the Return to Forgotten Age. So like very, very cool design for these guys. And I think what's also super exciting is they've done a good job at showing that I think there is so much Arkham left, right? Like we all knew it. If you've been diving deep into Arkham and you've played like custom campaigns, there is so much you can do with this game. It's insane. And I'm very excited to see what they do in the future. Drowned Quarter, I think, was overall again, like I have no real big notes. It was a fun board. Once again, just a simple setup. It was a 3x3 grid of locations, and it just said go nuts, have fun. And I'm telling you, we went nuts and we had fun. But what I think that Drowned City does really well, and what makes it really compelling, is that it gives you a lot of side quests that you can push your luck for, and it's kind of like the metric in which you can grade your scenario success, right? So like a big example of this is all the way back in the original core box, right? The Midnight Masks. There was a big discussion before the card pool got so big, which was how many masked cultists did you get? Now you can usually get 5 or 6, no problem. But back in the early days, you'd be like, we got 3, we got 4, and then you got 5. It's like, wow, you did so good. So now in the Drowned City, there's kind of a return to form in that, where there are little side objectives that if you complete, you're going to feel really good about yourself because they are like in addition to everything else the scenario has, right? So like there's the scenario objective, but then that implies there's a little sneaky thing. It's like, go resign. But just so you know, there might be more you can do here. So why don't you push your luck and see if you can do that? And I think that's a very compelling way to, again, add replayability. And it's a reward that they control in a linear campaign structure, because when a campaign structure is linear, it gives them more control over balance, right? That's kind of like the issue that Scarlet Keys had, where you could go anywhere and do your own thing. It's like how in an open world game, you can do whatever you want. It has the same issues in Scarlet Keys that it does in an open world video game, where how do we scale the enemies depending on if you go? Like, are there just areas you can't go to? So are they is the game actually not as open world as it says? It's like the complicated things that I think we're seeing the benefits of a linear campaign here in terms of this. And I think the design team did really nice job with it. Sorry, that is the wrong folder. After we did the Drowned Quarter, we went to the Apiary, which is not my favorite campaign of this one, but I think it's my second favorite. I know it sounds like I was about to say it's not my favorite campaign, but it's okay. But I was just debating within myself. I think this is my second favorite scenario we've played so far. The vibe of this one is kind of gross. So with this one, it's like you're going into like a birthing area. Actually, is an apiary? Am I right if I knew what an apiary was? Let's just go to quickly dictionary.com and let's learn something together. Because I thought an apiary was like a place where eggs are. It's not bad. I mean, it's not a place in which a colony or colonies of bees are kept, right? So it's the same kind of thing, right? Like, it's like a... Okay, that makes it even creepier. So with this one, you're kind of like, you're in this apiary, a place where bees are kept. But like the walls are all like fleshy and sticky, and you're like crawling through tunnels. And this one's like really neat because it's like Lost in Time and Space, where you only start with one location in play and you grow the map. And again, the design is really tight. The design is really tight where, like, I remember Travis was like, okay, there's two locations here and then one location in the bottom 10. And I was like, we're never going to hit that location. But then suddenly it's like, oh, we're hitting these locations all the time. And whenever new locations are added, it has the same sort of like bottom 10 the Mythos deck structure, which is very fun to be able to, like, from the design sides, to just see all that come in. But yeah, as you're exploring this sticky, goopy, fleshy place, there's just like these chicken tendies, we called them. They are the apiary tenders that were just like following you around, but there was also these cultists inside. And then from the western side, we eventually had to escort these cultists out, a la in, what's that scenario called? The second scenario in the Circle Undone. The name is slipping my mind right now. But in that scenario, it's where you have to like escort the Silver Twilight cultists out. It's the same sort of thing here. These cultists are like unfortunately in over their head, and the chicken tendies are going to start like doing some bad stuff to them. So you got to escort them out. Very fun scenario. Like I said, my second favorite. But my favorite scenario that we played is the last scenario that we played, which is called the Grand Vault. This one is really neat from a flavor side, and I think it comes across really well with that. You are in like the central vault of the campaign, of Revrillia, but you're also kind of in like the heart of the campaign, because I feel like this is the middle point where each side meets, and then it's like, okay, so here's the payoff to everything you've, like, the setup to everything you've done, and now you're going to see the payoff that the other side is going to kind of come through the other way. But in this one, you're kind of like on like a big shifting, moving platform that's exploring like a grand archive. Like, it's called the Grand Vault, so I guess the Grand Vault would be a good way to put it. But like, you're on this moving platform that is going around like a central point, and you're exploring the locations as you go. And you can only get off on the locations that are adjacent to you. So like moving your around is very flavorfully cool, and also like functionally cool. And also there's a lot of strategy you can do with how you're moving things around, especially with the enemies that are there. The persistent constructs come back, and there's the ways that you can game them that I'm aware now in the future would be really good. As Bryn has always said, if a campaign is good with Mind Wipe, it's a good campaign. Well, he did say that part. But he said that this is a good campaign for Mind Wipe, and a showcase where how Mind Wipe can be relevant, I think, to put the words in Bryn's mouth that I did just a few seconds ago, is really nice structure for it. That like the campaign design that you actually want a reason to bring a tech card in is super compelling. This scenario also led to a climax with the Inescapable, and it gave you like a little like side objective, like once again another one of those push your lucks thing. This returned to a push your luck mechanic, where we wanted to what am I trying to say? Where you wanted to, we got the objective, but then we're like, but could we push this a little bit further and maybe complete this goal that we thought was very important? And we got two big things on this, regarding defeating the Inescapable and opening the Inner Sanctum, which we're very excited to see the domino effect of those things added to our campaign guide. But yeah, I'm sure I'm going to have more to say in the future. And I feel like I've rambled on enough here. I talked about the scenarios we played. A few more things. I love that the scenarios are named after locations. Just they're the locations that you're exploring, right? The Western Wall, the Drowned Quarter, the Apiary, the Grand Vault, Court of the Ancients, Obsidian Canyons, Sepulchre of the Sleeper, right? Like, these are all awesome names, and I think they paint a very good picture of just the idea that you're exploring. I'm very curious to see how the campaign ends. I like that the final scenario is split into two parts. This is something that I've been personally asking for since a long time. But I'm going to see if those... I'm going to wait to hold comment on those until I see if they... if it's like... 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 if the Heart of Madness, where it's like split into two parts, but is it actually like, is it like the Edge of the Earth style, or is it like, in my opinion, in Scarlet Keys or the Feast of Hemlock Vale, where the scenarios would have been tighter if rather than playing like one super 2.5 hour long scenario, we played 2 hour long scenarios, right? So I'm very curious to see how that goes. Overall, though, I'm loving the Drowned City. I think that this is a phenomenal campaign, and I'm very excited to do a replay of it. I think it's really sweet. I think the design team knocked it out of the park again, and I honestly can't wait for the next one. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope my rambling wasn't too chaotic. I know sometimes my brain moves faster than my mouth, and I can kind of just speak a little bit of gibberish. So hopefully that didn't happen here. But thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good one. I'll be back soon with my final thoughts, my final first thoughts when we finish our blind run on the west side. Thanks for watching. Have a good one. And as always, the JJs.